Have you ever wondered why some people possess an almost magnetic ability to destroy everything they touch? They enter a room and within moments, harmony dissolves into discord. They speak and trust crumbles. They smile, yet something within you recoils as if sensing danger. These individuals move through life, leaving behind them a trail of broken relationships, shattered communities, and wounded hearts. Yet they often appear charming, confident, even admirable on the surface. 25 centuries ago, the great teacher Confucius observed this very phenomenon. He watched as certain individuals, despite their apparent talents and social graces, brought nothing but chaos wherever they went. Through his profound understanding of human nature and the moral order that governs all things, he identified what he considered the most dangerous trait a person could possess. Not anger, for anger burns hot but quickly cools. Not greed, for greed reveals itself plainly. Not even cruelty, for cruelty is recognized and can be opposed. The trait Confucius feared most was far more subtle, far more destructive, and infinitely harder to detect. It was a quality that could masquerade as strength, disguise itself as wisdom, and present itself as virtue while slowly poisoning everything it touched. This trait has the power to corrupt families, topple kingdoms, and turn the natural order of things upside down. And the most frightening aspect of all, those who possess it rarely recognize it within themselves. If you have ever found yourself questioning why certain people seem to attract chaos, why some individuals can never maintain lasting relationships despite their apparent gifts, or why you feel an inexplicable unease around someone who appears to have everything together, then you're about to discover something that will change how you see the world around you. Because understanding this dangerous trait is not merely an intellectual exercise. It is a matter of protecting yourself, your family, and your community from a force that can unravel the very fabric of harmonious living. The ancient wisdom of Confucius teaches us that the cultivation of character is the foundation of all human flourishing. When a person's character is sound, their actions naturally bring benefit to themselves and others. But when this foundation is corrupted by the trait we shall explore, even the most gifted individual becomes a source of destruction rather than creation, chaos rather than order. Confucius understood that human nature contains both the seeds of virtue and the potential for corruption. He taught that through diligent cultivation of righteousness, benevolence, and proper conduct, any person could align themselves with the way of heaven and become a source of harmony in the world. But he also recognized that when certain traits take root and flourish unchecked, they corrupt not only the individual, but spread like a disease to all who come into contact with them. The trait that concerned him most was not born of evil intent. In fact, it often springs from what appears to be strength and self-assurance. It develops in those who have never learned the fundamental lesson that true strength comes from recognizing one's place within the greater order of things. These individuals have never discovered that genuine confidence flows from understanding one's limitations and working within them, not from believing oneself to be above the natural laws that govern human relationships. What makes this trait so particularly dangerous is its ability to corrupt the very virtues it appears to embody. Where true benevolence seeks to understand and serve others, this corrupted version uses the appearance of kindness to serve only oneself. Where genuine wisdom acknowledges the vastness of what remains unknown, this distortion claims certainty about all things. Where authentic righteousness acts in harmony with moral law, this perversion bends all moral considerations to serve its own purposes. The teacher observed that those possessed of this trait often excel in the early stages of any endeavor. Their apparent confidence draws others to them. Their seeming certainty provides comfort to those who are uncertain. Their willingness to take charge appeals to those who prefer to follow. But as time passes, the true nature of this trait reveals itself through its fruits. Relationships become strained. Trust erodes. What began as apparent strength reveals itself as a weakness so fundamental that it undermines everything it touches. Confucius saw that this trait was particularly dangerous because it could exist within people of great talent and ability. A person of limited capabilities who possesses this flaw may cause only limited damage. But when someone of genuine gifts becomes corrupted by it, the destruction they can wreak is proportional to their abilities. The more talented they are, the more far-reaching their capacity for harm becomes. The ancient teacher also recognized that this trait thrives in environments where proper order has broken down. In families where children do not learn respect for their elders, in communities where leaders govern for their own benefit rather than the good of all, in societies where appearance matters more than substance, this dangerous quality finds fertile ground to grow and spread. But perhaps most unsettling of all, Confucius understood that this trait often develops gradually, almost imperceptibly. It does not announce itself with dramatic gestures or obvious moral failings. Instead, it grows quietly within a person's character, slowly warping their perception of themselves and their relationship to others, until what was once perhaps genuine virtue becomes its own corrupted shadow. The question that naturally arises is this: how can we recognize this trait when it appears in others? How can we protect ourselves and our loved ones from its influence? And perhaps most importantly, how can we examine our own hearts to ensure that this corruption has not taken root within us? Because the truth that Confucius understood, and that we must face honestly, is that under the right circumstances, any of us might fall prey to this most dangerous of human failings, ings. The teaching reveals itself not in grand proclamations, but in the quiet moments when a person believes themselves unobserved. Confucius called this trait the corruption of self-regard, but not the honest recognition of one's abilities or the rightful pride that comes from virtuous accomplishment. Rather, it is the subtle poison that whispers to the heart that one stands above the natural order, exempt from the duties that bind all others, deserving of privileges without corresponding responsibilities. This dangerous quality manifests first as an inability to receive correction. When a teacher offers guidance, such a person hears only criticism. When a friend speaks truthfully about their failings, they perceive only jealousy or ignorance. The very feedback that could guide them back toward virtue becomes, in their perception, evidence of others' inadequacy. They have closed their hearts to the possibility that they might be wrong, might need improvement, might benefit from the wisdom of others. Watch how such individuals respond when their plans fail or their judgments prove faulty. The person of genuine virtue will examine their own conduct first, asking what they might have done differently, how they might learn from the experience, what wisdom might be gained from the difficulty. But those corrupted by this trait immediately look outward for blame. The failure of their endeavors is always due to the incompetence of subordinates, the unfairness of circumstances, the inability of others to recognize their brilliance. Confucius observed that this corruption of character creates what he termed the reversed learning, where the virtuous person grows wiser through acknowledging their ignorance. The corrupted person becomes more foolish through asserting their knowledge. Where the truly strong become stronger by recognizing their weaknesses, those possessed by this trait become weaker through denying any limitation. They have reversed the natural process by which human beings grow in wisdom and virtue. The teacher saw that families suffer greatly when this trait takes hold in a parent or elder. Children learn not proper respect for authority, but rather witness authority exercised without proper restraint or wisdom. They see power used for personal advantage rather than for the good of all family members. The natural order, by which elders guide the young through example, becomes corrupted into a demonstration of how position can be abused rather than honored. In governance, this trait proves even more destructive. A ruler who possesses genuine virtue understands that their authority exists to serve the people, that their elevated position brings with it elevated responsibility. But when this corruption takes hold in one who governs, the relationship becomes inverted. The people exist to serve the ruler's desires. The kingdom's resources become the ruler's personal treasury, and the laws become tools for personal advantage rather than instruments of justice. Confucius taught that such corruption spreads through imitation. Those around the corrupted individual begin to adopt similar patterns of thought and behavior. Students copy their teachers' unwillingness to accept correction. Ministers mirror their rulers' self-serving attitudes. Family members learn to protect themselves by developing their own hardened hearts. What begins as one person's character flaw becomes a poisonous influence that corrupts entire communities. The most tragic aspect of this trait is how it destroys the very relationships that could bring healing. True friendship requires the ability to both give and receive honest counsel. Marriage thrives when both partners can acknowledge their faults and work together toward improvement. The relationship between teacher and student depends on the student's willingness to be guided and corrected. But this dangerous quality makes genuine relationship impossible because it cannot tolerate the vulnerability that real intimacy requires. Yet Confucius did not speak of this trait as an unchangeable fate. He believed deeply in the human capacity for transformation through sincere cultivation of virtue. But the path back to righteousness requires something that those possessed by this corruption find almost impossible: the complete abandonment of their false elevation, the willingness to begin again as students rather than masters, the courage to face honestly how their pride has harmed others and themselves. The teacher pointed to the natural world for instruction. The mountain that stands tallest is also most vulnerable to the storm. The tree that will not bend breaks in the wind, while the grass that yields survives. Water, which appears weak and yielding, eventually carves through the hardest stone. Those who understand this principle and apply it to their own character development find strength in humility, wisdom in acknowledging ignorance, and power in serving others rather than demanding service. But for those who have become convinced of their own superiority, such teachings sound like weakness. They cannot see that what they perceive as strength in themselves appears to others as brittleness. What they experience as confidence, others recognize as blindness. What they consider leadership, others endure as tyranny. The very trait that makes them feel powerful is precisely what makes them dangerous to all who must live and work alongside them. Them. Now you understand the trait that Confucius feared above all others, the corruption of self-regard that places oneself above the natural order of things. This is not mere arrogance, for arrogance can be corrected through experience. This is the fundamental reversal of the proper relationship between the individual and the way of heaven, the belief that one stands exempt from the duties that bind all human beings together in harmony. The teacher's wisdom reveals itself in this understanding. Those who possess this trait become dangerous not because they intend evil, but because they have lost the capacity to see themselves clearly. They cannot receive correction, cannot acknowledge fault, cannot bend without breaking. Like a tree that grows too rigid, they appear strong until the storm comes, and then they shatter while the humble grass survives. But remember this: Confucius taught that no heart is beyond redemption if it truly seeks the path of virtue. The way back begins with the courage to step down from the false throne we have built for ourselves, to become students once again, to remember that true strength flows from recognizing our place within the greater order of all things. Look within your own heart with honest eyes. When correction comes, do you receive it with gratitude or resentment? When your plans fail, do you examine your own conduct first? When others succeed where you have struggled, can you celebrate their virtue without diminishing your own worth? These small moments reveal whether we walk the path of wisdom or have begun the dangerous journey toward that most corrupting of all human failings. The choice, as always, remains yours. Choose wisely, for the harmony of all who depend upon you hangs in the balance.